Welcome to Attitude of Altitude podcast presented by Planet of One. This podcast is designed to inspire change in people to become the best versions of themselves and live their best lives. We share stories of struggle and success to encourage and empower listeners to be bold, take action, and be the change we desire to see in this world. We are all part of this planet. We are all a planet of one. Know that your attitude determines your altitude in life. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Attitude of Altitude. I'm really happy to have with us today Jill Brew, a mother, a wife. She has 2 daughters. She has an education, a degree in early childhood, human development, and family life. She worked in the field of special education with families, supporting them. And in the meantime, she was going through her own challenges with her 2 daughters who had multiple issues, and she was looking for something that will lead them to wellness. Please help me welcome Jill. Hi, Jill. How are you today?
Hello. I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. I've been so looking forward to you being with us today because you've been on quite a journey through your life, through your kids, through the teachings that you've gone through with working with families. Mm-hmm. Would you please enlighten us and tell us a little bit about you and how you became in the field that you came into?
Yes. So I started out of college working directly with families of children with disabilities. My services went anywhere from in the home, supporting the families and children, to out in the community. I helped them develop outcomes, goals, and strategies to be able to obtain those goals. It was a program that was funded through the state of Missouri, which is where I spent most of my time as a child and then as an adult. So that program, I serviced probably 50 kids a year, and I started to see there was a common tie to all of the kids. Most of them were struggling nutritionally. Most of them were chronically sick. Most of them had sleep issues. Most of them had behavioral challenges. So I started to do my own research and finding out how important that gut-brain connection was. So at that time, I was really limited on information that I could really offer families, because it was really just my own research that I'd been doing. Then after some time, I started my own family, and I'm the mother to 2 wonderful girls. They are now 16 and 21. So from the beginning, my oldest one, she had some health issues that really I never got answers for. It was pretty much, oh, she's got hives. Well, maybe she's eating something that's bothering her, or give her Benadryl. Or, oh, she has strep throat. Excuse me. She has strep throat for the, 10th time. Let's just keep giving her antibiotics, but no real reasons of why she was sick. So that started me down the journey, because when it's your own kids, things really start to hit home. And you're like, something's going on. My husband and I, we kind of had, I guess, our own health issues. We felt like we were pretty healthy. I mean, we were, at that point when it was my daughter, when she was younger and we started down the road, we were in our 30s. And not on any kind of prescription medication. So really you think, oh, you're healthy, you're fine. Don't really go to the doctor, don't really get sick, but still didn't have like the energy levels that I felt like we should. Some extra aches and pains and digestive issues that I didn't really think we should be having. But after a while, they just become normalized, whether it's because your doctor's telling you it's normal, or whether it's because you just have dealt with it for so long, you don't even recognize it anymore. So I met a wonderful, wonderful woman who runs the Center for Natural Health. She's a chiropractor and a naturopath. And our paths crossed. It was totally meant to be. She started working with our family and really uncovering why my kids were struggling. From that time, we had our second daughter, and everything was great until about age 4. And she started developing severe eczema. I didn't have eczema. My husband didn't have eczema. And, they say, oh, it's typically hereditary. Maybe she got it from one of you. I'm like, well, we don't have eczema, never had eczema. So no answers there. A lot of the same stuff, like, oh, it's the detergent. Oh, maybe it's the soap. Maybe, just a lot of unanswered questions. Put this ointment on, try this lotion. So it was just the big runaround. We, went through the chain and saw the primary doctor, the dermatologist skin specialist, the GI doctor, and, they just send you to everybody, and not really getting any answers. So bringing it back, like I said, I crossed paths with the chiropractor and naturopath, and she opened my eyes to a world I did not even know existed. I had been doing my own research as far as the nutrition component because of my clients and then my own kids, but there's just so much more than just nutrition out there on how to heal your body. So it was definitely, that was my turning point, for sure.
How did you narrow down, Jill, that the common factor among all these kids that you're treating is the nutritional part of things?
Well, first, I would probably say, we did food journals. And I said, okay, what do these kiddos, what do things look like? Because when I'm coming in for therapy, they're typically eating goldfish crackers, or Cheerios, or fruit snacks. Those are kind of the staples. And looking at that, none of those have any really nutritional value. And most of them were drinking juice or cups of milk. So, and really, I would say that was a big factor for a lot of families. And that was a lot of the obstacles that we were dealing with in therapy was, how do I get my child to eat? Because they were so picky. The most of the foods they ate were brown in color or tan. So like chicken nuggets or French fries or corn dogs. So you start to look at that and then you're like, okay, they're not focusing, they're not learning, they're not talking, they're sick all the time, they're on antibiotics. I mean, my population that I worked with were typically under the age of 3, some of them up to age 5. And the amount of antibiotics that they had been on within that short time is more than what you should be on for the course of a long life. So, that's where we started, was food. I was like, that has to be, and we are what we eat. So, and food is medicine. And I'm looking like, well, this food you're eating is not medicine. There's no medicinal purpose at all for this food you're eating. So that was a lot of it. And most kiddos, I feel like, that are super, super picky, it's because they're very deficient in other vitamins and minerals and nutrients.
Now, the challenges with your own kids, was it a nutrition factor too?
Yes, that was a big part of it. So, but what was really interesting was, well, I would say, yeah, I feel like, because when you're a new mom or new dad, I feel like you look for convenience because we just get caught up in that hamster wheel. And so, you're looking at, once they come off of it's real easy when they're on baby food. You're just giving them fruits and vegetables. It's great. So, but once you start coming off that table food, it's like, okay, I'm going to mimic kind of that fast food, but in my home. So it turns into fish sticks. Oh, they're getting fish, right? That has to be good. No, and when you really look at and you start to read the label, there's like a minuscule amount of fish actually in the fish stick. So Yeah, I would say that we definitely fell into that trap. They ate a lot of inflammatory foods that I didn't know at that time were inflammatory. So they're eating a lot of, cheese sticks and drinking milk. And, then of course, to make it fun, we throw in some chocolate syrup to make it chocolate milk, all those things. You think you're being like a good mom and a good dad and feeding them the right things. And it's just so backwards. And then, when you are giving them those fruits and vegetables and they're babies and you go to like, oh, they have to be soft food, so it's all canned. And that's really a lot of misinformation out there. So, yeah, I would definitely say the first thing we changed dramatically was what was on the plate. We revamped everything.
You were working full-time, doing the services for the states and with the kids. And you had your own family. So navigating the waters of being at work, building good nutritional meals for your own family, and taking care of your own health was one of your keys to begin looking at this.
Right, absolutely. And when you're so involved in your job, and I was always a therapist who kind of took my kids home with me in a sense, like they were constantly always on my mind. But when it starts to hit home and you're like, whoa, my kiddo isn't meeting their milestones. My kid's not sleeping great. My kid has dark circles under their eyes. My kid's irritable. And I'm like, what is going on? So, once you kind of open yourself up, and where I met the chiropractor and naturopath, then everything started coming together. Then you meet this person who's a nutritionist. And then you meet this person who does, energy work, and everything just kind of starts to fall into place. We went through allergy testing, and come to find out, like for my oldest, she was pretty much allergic to everything I was giving her.
Wow.
So, yeah. And I was floored. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I understand that feeling of that overwhelmed feeling. I sat across from the chiropractor who did the sensitivity testing, and I just cried. I said, what do I feed my child? So I get what that is like, because I've, many a times talking with parents with their kids and really starting to go down that road, they look at me the same way. Like, are you kidding me? I can't battle this. What am I going to feed my kids? You want me to take away everything they eat? And as a parent, that's where we get joy. That's where we get comfort, is feeding our kids and making them feel full. So it was a tough road, but the younger, the easier, for sure, to make those changes.
Because it's also an opportunity and a challenge for you when you're presented with what she cannot eat. Now you have to adjust as a mom with what you're creating also. So it's more things on your plate to work on. What did you do to deal with that, Jill?
Well, after I had my meltdown and then came home and told my husband we can't eat anything, then I just got it together, and I was like, okay, I'm putting so much emphasis on food. Food can be so much more simple. So it actually, what I thought was going to complicate things, simplified things. So, it does take a little bit of planning ahead as far as, getting those foods that you're going to serve, and just kind of like, and not making, it doesn't have to be so fancy. Like, we don't have to have your carbs and your protein and we just kind of overthink things. And so, like a lean fish and chicken and apples and green beans, like that's so easy. So easy. And then same thing, like for snacks, we get caught up in advertisements and kind of being brainwashed a little bit by the media where, we have to have all these filler foods. And so at first I was like, I have to replace these, but I was replacing them with just, I guess, better junk. You know, like, oh, a gluten-free cookie. Well, it's still a cookie with a ton of sugar. Why I don't really need to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And then half of them they didn't like. So then I was throwing them out and trying new ones. And then I was like, I'm complicating this. How about some carrot sticks or blueberries for a snack? Like, and then I don't have to do anything but rinse them and put them in a bowl. Like, it's just as easy as pouring them out of a package. So I think just really changing your whole thought process of how you just look at food. And, you know, that it's okay to actually have a little bit of hunger in between meals. That's okay. We don't always have to walk around being full and feeling like we have to keep filling up. And I saw that a lot with my clients. They were constantly, there were a lot, you know, they weren't able to communicate yet, but there was a lot of meltdowns in the kitchen and around food because they were constantly hungry because they were just eating empty calories, nothing with any sustenance. So I think too, like you're worried, oh, they're not going to get all that filler food, but it, you know, I mean, it's kind of empty calories anyway, so it doesn't last. You start filling them with like, oh, turkey slices for a snack. I mean, we get so like set where, oh, breakfast has to be pancakes and bacon and eggs. No, you can give them avocado and turkey. So it was just totally retraining my whole thought process on food and mealtime.
Which also impacted the way that your kids reacted to things,
Oh,
the
yeah.
way that you felt
Mm-hmm.
gaining control, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, your body just starts to heal from the inside out. Your brain focus, you know, the focus changes. Your ability to attend, like kids can attend to task better. They were reaching milestones. They're, you know, some kiddos that were really late to crawl and sit up, that started to change because their bodies just at a cellular level had more energy. So, I mean, they were able, it was, I mean, the changes have been amazing. And then, you know, we started down the road of chiropractic and, you know, making sure the spine was aligned. That really helped more with sleep and behaviors.
Would you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, you know, your spinal cord is, you know, runs that central nervous system, which gives off information to every organ in the body. And if you don't have a clear pathway, which is that spinal cord, and things aren't running smoothly, you don't get those messages to those organs. So you don't get the messages to the muscles. So every vertebrae is aligned with an organ function. So chiropractic work was really, for us, it was really important and a really good fit. As my kids got a little bit older, they started to take, I guess they took the plunge and started with acupuncture, which has been, I love it. It's amazing. My 16-year-old still sometimes is like, yeah, I don't want to do that today. So, but I mean, you know, as they get older and you can talk them through it, it's very painless. For younger kids, they don't really sit, but there are other techniques available for kids where you can do it through massage, through essential oils, or through some of the chiropractors or acupuncturists have a laser that they can put on the acupuncture point. So there are other options as well for kiddos that aren't ready to be needled with acupuncture. And then we kind of started to even go further with, we started to do some supplementing. So some of the supplemental gaps we had with nutrition, as far as, it takes time to reheal the gut. And so in the meantime, while you're feeding it all the foods it needs, you do have to do some repair and some supplemental nutrition. So we did start to go down the road of adding some supplements in. And those went anywhere from fatty acids for brain health to vitamins and minerals. So we did look at that.
Jill, how were you figuring that part out? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that go through these same issues, but they're not sure where to even begin because there's so much out there.
So, well, before I got into what I'm doing now, biomeridian scanning, which we'll get into in a little bit, I kind of had to do it old school, and it was blood work. So, which is not pleasant for kids. So, I can only do it every so often because it just, for one, to get your doctor to agree to do that blood work, because they look at them and say, oh, they're fine. There's no way they have deficiencies in that or that, So, so it was blood work. That was one of those steps. And then the chiropractor I work with, she does a technique called muscle testing. And it's an applied kinesiology technique that is allowed to individualize to the person, that through muscle testing, she's able to tell if the body is deficient in something. So we were so blessed to have her as that resource. So if I did get a supplement, we brought it in. We had it muscle tested all the way down to the exact dosage that they would need. So not everyone has access to a chiropractor that does that does muscle testing. It's becoming a lot more common because our bodies don't lie. So, that's pretty awesome.
Is that what led you to the biomeridian field that you're in now?
Yes.
How did you get to that?
So after probably, I'd say about 5 years of just doing my own research, just reaching out to people that I just knew through, working at the early intervention program. We had a dietitian on staff. So really starting to work with her more closely, picking her brain, working with the chiropractor. I just started to gain more and more knowledge. And like I said, just doors kept opening up. So I'm at home. My sister-in-law sends me an email and says, hey, look at this report. I have this scan done for my nephew, for my nephew, her son. Tell me what you think about it. I have no idea what it is. I can't interpret it. I'm confused, right? And so she sent it to me and I read over it and I was floored. I said, who is this? Where'd you get this done? I need to know everything about it. So, and that was the biomeridian scanning report that she sent me. So, long story short, someone came into her hometown that she grew up with who no longer lived there and had battled Lyme disease herself and was debilitated. She was an on-air news anchor, and her life just came to a screeching halt. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. She went from doctor to doctor for years, and she came across someone who did the biomeridian scanning, who detected that through that scan that she was dealing with Lyme bacteria and Lyme disease. So I got in contact with her because she's the one that did the scanning, and then that was all she wrote. So I just was fascinated. I sent all the information to the chiropractor that had become like family for us. And I said, what do you think about this? And she said, this is an amazing technology. She said, hands down, it's the best one I've seen in the field. And she said, but I don't know, you might kind of replace me if you use this machine.
So what is it? What is biomeridian then?
So this is what the handy dandy machine looks like. I don't know if I can see it.
Okay. That's a little machine. It's not gigantic.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Nope, it's Bluetooth capable. So I travel with it. I can go anywhere with it. It is a quantum physics-based technology that is designed to run frequencies through the acupuncture meridians in the body to detect imbalances. So those imbalances can be anywhere from a virus to a bacteria, to a parasite, to a nutritional deficiency, to a vertebral misalignment, to a tooth issue. and it looks at all organ functions, so it detects any imbalances in the organ, in any of the organs. It detects, let's see, it will tell you, it matches you with essential oils that would benefit you, crystals, if you like using crystals. It detects it will detect an emotional imbalance, and if you have a chakra misaligned. You name it, it can detect it. So the idea of biomeridian scanning, it looks at the body like an onion, and it peels away layers at a time to get to the root cause. So, and then after you run the scan, it gives me information on how to imprint and make a homeopathic remedy specifically for the client. And then
how do you run those tests, Steve and Jill?
So those tests are run in person, where the person is physically holding the device, or the other options, which most of my clients use, are saliva, hair, nail. Most clients, I scan from people all over the country. I'm now outside of the country in Canada, so that's exciting. And they all typically, the easiest is saliva sample. It's a super easy process. They pop it in the mail, and that saliva sample is good really up to 14 days. I don't really like to go over 14. And then I develop the report. They get their scan results, and then they get their treatment plan on how they're going to be moving forward. That can include, I do a food sensitivity scan as well. So that's been great for my kids and my family, being able to see, okay, how are things looking with foods? And then you're taking a homeopathic remedy to desensitize you to those foods. So it's to put your body into homeostasis and balance. So it's like, the way that you could compare that to is if you were to take allergy shots.
So are you replacing doctors with what you're doing, or how does this work? Because it sounds amazing.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I have. So I don't really like to say that I'm replacing a doctor, because doctors are wonderful and they're amazing, and they've got so much education when it comes to certain fields. And they know, I don't want to say they know more than I do, but they know a lot of different things that I don't know. So not necessarily replacing. I have worked with a couple doctors who really are just baffled by what's going on with their patient, and they have sent them to me for more information. Or the client has come to me first and then taken their results to the doctor and been able to get somewhere where they haven't been able to get. So like an example, I've got a gentleman. So I work with all ages, from newborn to, I think my oldest client is probably 86, 87. So I have a gentleman who was told he got his blood work done and had a thyroid, like his thyroid numbers were off. And he's like, okay, well, I don't really have any of the symptoms. And they wanted to put him on medicine. He's like, no, I don't really want to do that. So came and saw me. We did some scanning and determined that aspartame was slowing down his thyroid function. So I said, are you ingesting a lot of aspartame? He's like, oh, I'm a Diet Coke junkie. Oh, yeah. So he was like, but hey, I'll stop. I'll get off of it. I'm, 48 years old and whatever, I'll be done with it. I don't have a thyroid condition. So he stopped drinking Diet Coke for 3 months, went back, did his blood work, and his thyroid levels are fine. And he's like, and he works out a lot, and he couldn't lose any weight. But he's not a big guy either. But, he's like, I'm down over 5 pounds, and I am off Diet Coke, and my thyroid numbers are fine. So with that, he didn't even have to really, we did put him on a homeopathic, but he didn't even have to necessarily do that. That was us being able to just detect what he needed to eliminate to bring wellness back to his body.
Because those are things typically doctors don't get into completely.
No.
They'll do blood work and they do all kinds of things, but they don't get into the nitty gritty of
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why do you have a thyroid problem? So thyroid's a big one, I'd say, with people over, gosh, I'm seeing thyroid people actually younger and younger. It's crazy. But, you know, a lot of times I'm like, oh, did they run like have they checked your iodine levels? And they're like, no. And that's such an easy fix because once you get put on thyroid medication, your thyroid stops doing any activity that it has left in it, right? It stops. So then you're stuck on a prescription medication.
So you become an asset to the doctors, honestly, with what you're providing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes, of course, you know, I have clients that bring in results and the doctors look at them like they have two heads. But, you know, a lot of times my clients will just push and push. And typically they'll push enough that they'll say, okay, fine, I'll look at that. And then they're like, okay. So, you know, I had a client, she was a college student and she was sick for, gosh, probably a month and just like upper respiratory, could not kick it. This was pre-COVID days. And just could not kick it. And you know, the mom was like, oh, she's just constantly sick and I don't want to take her to the urgent care. We keep going, da-da-da. So we scanned her. I said, well, she has it's showing that she has bronchial pneumonia. So I was like, I would take her back in and demand a chest x-ray. Because they just kept like giving her cough medicines and over-the-counter stuff, a couple prescriptions. Nothing was, you know, what they were giving her wasn't the right thing. So they did a chest x-ray and the nurse came out and said, okay, so she has bronchial pneumonia. And so it confirmed it. And then she was able to get the right medication because there are times where a medication is going to be necessary. You know, homeopathics are amazing and have phenomenal results, but there are times where you've got to get more aggressive. So it just kind of depends. A couple other stories I have. I've got a lot of my clientele that were my in-home therapy kids have now become my scanning clients. So now they're using the biomeridian scanning. So one of my clients who is now 8, who never became verbal over all those years of therapy, very intensive therapy, started scanning with me a year ago. And he is now verbal. It's amazing. He's sleeping and he's now potty trained. So we were able to just really, really hone in on what his gut-brain connection was looking like, what his nutritional deficiencies were looking like. He's doing a lot of homeopathy, so he does take the homeopathic remedies that are specifically imprinted for him to bring balance to the body. His behaviors, he's interacting with his little brother. I mean, his story has been awesome, just awesome.
So your scan is not invasive.
No.
You're getting a sample of saliva or hair or what was the last one?
Nail.
And then you run it through the system, your machine, and it produces basically what's going on within the body. How often would you want someone to scan? And are you only looking for people that have a health issue?
So for how often you scan definitely depends on the results you get after your treatment program. So after you finish your treatment protocol, I do a rescan. So we're going back, they send me a new sample and we're rescanning against their sample against everything that we just addressed over the 3 to 6 week period. The protocols are anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. So we do a rescan that gives me more information. And of course, it's also feedback. You know, like I've got one mom who, her son, another kiddo who was nonverbal, started meeting IEP goals, started talking, and the mom's like, I don't want to do another round right now. I just want to enjoy this while I got it, and he's doing amazing, and I don't want to rock the boat. So, and then I've got some people that just really, you know, sometimes age is a factor. So you've got to think of yourself as, okay, how long have you been feeling bad? Some people it's been decades. Sometimes it's been a few weeks. So it really depends individually. I would say to get to optimal wellness, it would probably take a good 4 to 6 rounds of scanning to get to really feeling great. But I don't know, everyone's so different. Sometimes I get, oh, can you remake that same exact homeopathic that I took? Because that's amazing and I feel great. So everyone differs. And it really just depends on how involved. There's certain things that take a little bit longer to address, like parasites are pretty long road that takes a while to really get rid of. So yeah, everybody's different. But
How has your own daughter's health changed since you started this process yourself?
So when I found out about the machine, the first thing I said to my husband was, I don't care what this costs. We're getting it. Because if it only helps my family and immediate friends, then it's worth it. Because I saw the capability of it. So of course my family, they were the guinea pigs. So they were the first ones to, start doing all the different protocols. And yeah, it's been great. So my youngest one with eczema, her skin looks amazing. Come to find out the root cause for her getting the eczema was actually a specific vaccine that just really was hard on her immune system. Her body did not take it well, and things just kind of shut down. Your skin is your biggest filtering organ, and she just was not able to filter the toxins from the vaccine. So, we did some detoxing with vaccines and changed some things in her diet as well. She eats pretty well anyway. And her results have been great. The older one, I didn't start until she was older. So she's been a longer, she's still a work in progress. We've been able to help some of her food sensitivities. She does have some life-threatening food allergies, which now, after desensitizing and doing the homeopathy with it, she can now, she doesn't get the headache when she's in the room with it. She doesn't have the nausea. She had some pretty significant symptoms without even ingesting. So we've had some great results. Her focus is much better. She's in college and doing super, and she did originally have an IEP 504 plan. She no longer has that, and she has a 3-4. So we've seen great strides. She had some social challenges, some anxiety and OCD symptoms, and those that can go in waves, but we have a pretty good handle on what triggers them, and they definitely improved. 90%. Every once in a while she has a flare-up. It did end up, she does have Lyme. So the scan did detect Lyme, which that is what's a work in progress. That's a hard one. And she's probably had it since she was about 4, when she had a pretty significant tick bite. That went untreated because everyone said it was fine. So
the scan does detect even stuff that has happened years and years ago.
Mm-hmm. It just takes a while to peel away those layers. It deals with your surface issues first and then it gets to the root cause. So it addresses causal chain and kind of takes care of those things until you can get to that nitty gritty of what is really the underlying.
Is there a certain kind of person that should not go through something like this?
No.
Okay. So this could be honestly good for anybody that is looking to see what's going on within their own body.
Mm-hmm. And I do have people that really don't come to me for a specific issue. They just want to stay on top of things. So it's kind of like getting their oil changed a couple of times a year, where they're like, let's just kind of make sure digestion's going okay. I'm not harboring any parasites. Make sure I'm keeping up with, I'm not having any nutritional gaps. And if so, then increase foods that support that. That's really my go-to when people do have nutritional gaps, is really getting specific and saying, okay, let's say magnesium is low. Let's increase foods that are high in magnesium before you have to start taking a vitamin or mineral supplement. Because your body knows what to do with a food way more than it does a synthetic vitamin or mineral.
That was my interest when we first met and I heard you speak, is the attitude to take care of things before they become worse off in your body, or to be able to make a difference before anything goes wrong. That was my peak interest. And then hearing about your kids and what they went through, like, wow, okay, how do families deal with so much and really create a plan that makes a difference in the long run, not just in the short run.
And a plan that's manageable. Like, I definitely meet my clients where they're at. And I kind of know, like, okay, we're just going to start with this. Because if I throw the whole protocol at them, it's too overwhelming. So I do have to really tailor it. And, sometimes we'll break it up. Like, okay, these are your results, but let's break this into, 3 tiers. And let's do this for weeks 1 through 4. And then we're going to, touch base. And then we're going to add this for weeks. So it's great that, I definitely keep in close contact with all my clients. I'm, sometimes maybe make myself too accessible, but that's okay.
So you give them something manageable instead of
Absolutely
getting into the overwhelm of, oh my God, I have to deal with all of this. Because once you get that scan, you're learning everything that's kind of going on within your body. I'm curious because when you hear of scans and stuff, a lot of people go, well, this must be super expensive. Is it?
I feel like I'm definitely affordable. There are people out there that, I just had someone got an estimate for $800 for someone to do the scan. No way. And I want people to come back because I know this is not going to be a one and done for most people. So it's $135 for the first initial scan. And that one is very broad. I'm doing a lot of scanning to get a picture of the whole person. So I think that's really important. Like, I'm not just going to scan and check digestion because you tell me you have stomach aches every day. I'm going to look at the whole body. So that's $135. You get typically 1 homeopathic remedy and 1 herbal remedy. Some people require more than 1. They're $20 each. And then shipping, because I ship them your homeopathic and herbal remedy directly to you. And then that's it. There are times where it recommends a specific maybe supplement that I have the ability to order. So I try to keep the cost super low. There's not really a markup. So there are some things that I would recommend, but I typically always I do encourage people to price shop, make sure that, and I send them exactly what it would be that I could order, what the milligrams are, what the ingredients are, so people can compare apples to apples. So yeah, that's.
And did you say you do a follow-up then with the person?
So we follow up when I always touch base, usually a couple of times during the 3 to 6 weeks. Throughout that. And then when they complete it, they send me a new sample and we do the rescan. And then we talk about
the whole thing.
That is. And then we do a shorter consult, probably about 15, 20 minutes when you're done to see, how do you want to move forward? Do you want to do a new round? Are you at a good place? I also include supposed to be a 30-minute consult, but it's never under an hour. So in the beginning to go over the results so everyone feels comfortable because the scans are pretty involved. And when I email them, they can be overwhelming. And if you haven't been to a training and you're not certified in reading and scanning, to be able to interpret the scans can be difficult. So I do a summary. And I itemize it into categories. So like chiropractic recommendations, acupuncture recommendations, essential oil recommendations. And then there's a summary of like if there's bacteria, viruses, and those things. So I feel like make it a little bit more easy to pull out the important stuff, because when you do look at the scan, it's a lot of information.
And someone who's already on some kind of therapy treatment and is taking meds in traditional ways, how do you work with someone like that? And I'm saying that because my dad has been with a respiratory issue for over 20 years, and we've been to different doctors and all kinds of things. And there'll be times he's improved, and then there'll be times like, I don't care what he's taking, he's still the same.
Right.
So it's always a thought process like, how could we not be better?
Right.
When we go through these therapies?
So a couple things I do. I always get a prescription list or any medications that the client is taking. And I always look over those. And the first thing I look at are side effects of those medications. Because sometimes, and then I talk to the client and we kind of start, when did you start this medication? When did you start having this specific symptom? Because sometimes it's related to the medication they're taking, but they're just being prescribed one thing after another and another, and it just becomes a big blur for people. And then I always check to make sure that there is not any sort of drug herbal interaction with what the client is taking. And then I always encourage, okay, this is what you're going to be getting from me. Take this to your primary, let them know that you're going to start taking it. And hopefully the doctors, most of the time, they're on the same page. Most of the time. So, yeah, I have a client right now that is getting ready to go through, we're working on some fertility. And she's getting ready to do probably be inseminated. So we're trying to see if the homeopathic's going to time up, and we don't want it to be when she's having the transfer. So, and the doctor's like, well, I just don't want you to do it at all right now. So, I get that too sometimes, and, a lot of times it's just that they don't know enough about it. So for them to sign off on something they don't know about, then is liability for them. So.
It sounds like you're really fortifying what they might already be learning through their doctors, but fortifying them with more information and more knowledge about what's going on within their body.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I definitely think the older we get, the more set we are in our ways. So, sometimes to make dietary and nutritional changes for people that are a little bit older is a little bit harder, and they would rather just supplement. So
I love that you're touching on that. Really, because that is what the biggest challenge is as we continue to get older, being set in our ways. How do you work with people to begin to shift their mindset along with their intake of stuff?
Yeah. And I want to say, just from doing this for the last few years, you realize how much our bodies are just a field of energy. And we're basically an electrical circuit board, and we have to have electrical charge. Otherwise we don't run, so we won't work. So that's been fascinating, because when you then work in the emotional part of things and how that affects our being, that's where I feel like I can make the shift with the adults, is when we start to really talk about, okay, what's going on emotionally? What are you dealing with? And the scan, you can't hide from the scan. It tells all. So, it does detect specific emotions and things that could be going on. And that's usually pretty eye-opening for the client when they read those results. They're like, oh my gosh, that is so crazy. How did it know that, so specific? And I'm like, it detects frequencies, and that frequencies have emotions tied to them. Everything's measurable. So I would say that's probably where the shift happens. And then when they start to just become more open, they're like, okay, the whole attitude changes, everything shifts. And that's been really awesome to see.
Jill, thank you so much.
Sure.
This has been a wealth of information.
Thank you for having me and letting me share.
how do our listeners get a hold of you?
So you can reach me on my website, which is www.questformyhealth.com, and it's Quest, Quest, the number 4, my health. And then my email is questformyhealth@gmail.com.
That's awesome. Is there anything that you'd like to share that I may not have asked you, or you say, I'd love to say this to your audience?
Don't get discouraged. That's the biggest thing. You are, being validated, I feel like is huge for people. When you feel like which I did for years, banging your head up against the wall and you're not getting answers and nobody's listening and you're like, but I don't feel right. I want to feel better. Take that and keep pushing because you're your biggest advocate. You deserve answers. I might not be, if I'm not the avenue you want to take, there's other resources out there. Do your research and take your health into your own hands. Take control of it. You deserve to feel good and you deserve to live a happy, healthy life. So,
Jill, thank you so much. I appreciate everything you've shared with us. For our listeners, please remember that your attitude in life determines your altitude. So if you want anything in your life to begin to change and go forward and improve, pay attention to your attitude. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time for another episode. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Attitude of Altitude podcast. You can find us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook under Planet of One. Please come join us. Leave us comments. Let us know if there's something specific that you'd like us to cover. We are here for you to make sure that you become the best version of yourself. Your attitude determines your altitude in life. Thank you again for joining us.